Evening, morning, and afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. Today, we are joined by Jack Vinijtrongjit. He's the co-founder and CEO of AAG Ventures. Jack is a serial entrepreneur, avid investor, and advisor to global Web2 and Web3 tech startups. He has created platforms for scalable applications in omnichannel retail, XY retail, content management, TOOVIA, and real estate, CozyBid. Before we get started, we have to do the usual disclaimer. Anything said by either Jack or myself does not constitute financial advice. Please, everyone, do your own research. Because we just have Jack on the podcast today, we're going to spend more time talking about his very interesting background. Jack, tell us more about yourself.
Hi. I have been spending quite a bit of time in tech. I would say the past 25 years or so, and it's been mostly in a large scale integration or building our platform. And I've been fortunate to be in already. I think we've been in like 11 sectors or so. So I've seen quite a bit. I've been in from airline to broadcasting to consumer cyclical, insurance, fashion, and many other things. And so far, I have had 4 startups. So AAG is the 4th startup, and most of my startup happened in the past 10 to 12 years or so, and it's mostly been about building platform, right? So I've been building content platform, retail platform, application platform, and now latest AAG is the Web3 and Metaverse platform. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me, and yeah, very excited to discuss all these different topics today.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time, Jack. You've done so many different startups, and it's so interesting. And I was wondering, like, what is your motivation? Because I find, like, even for most people, doing one job is hard enough, and you've done so many different jobs. Like, where do you get the energy from? What's been pushing you to move between all these different ventures?
Yeah, sure. I'm a solution-oriented kind of person, right? So when I see a problem that needs to be solved, I run towards it. Whether it's a new kind of problem that there's no solution yet, or making something efficient, right? And I'm a hacker at heart, and I tend to do things a little bit off the book in some way, right? I've been called a cowboy many times, but in the end, it's all about finding the most efficient way, or I guess the most innovative way to solve a problem, because there's always going to be new problem invented, right? There's generation shift, there's technology shift, business need to change their business model, or what's going on in the market right now, like with FTX and all that. So there's always going to be new things to do, and that's why it's very exciting. And I guess that's probably why I've been in and out of startup for the past 10, 12 years or so.
So, Jack, I ask everybody on the podcast this: what was your first memory of crypto? Like, when did you hear about it? Everyone knows my example. I was Googling some blog and I'm like, hey, there's this thing called Ethereum. You can use your extra GPU power to mine it. So, what was your story? What was that thing that brought you aware of crypto?
Yeah, so for me, it was actually my boss, right? And my boss, who is currently my VP of engineering, actually. So it was back in 2011. He was telling me about Bitcoin, right? And how we can start mining Bitcoin. So we like set up on our like laptop and then on our test server, and we start seeing basically in some way Bitcoin being mined, right? I think back then it was like 20 cents or something. And
Wow.
and the interesting part, I didn't pay that much attention to it because it's like I'm earning like 20 to 40 cents a day. So it's really not that much. Is it really worth the time? So I didn't pay too much attention. And yeah, so for me to really get back into crypto and Web3 was really around 2016, 17 when I revisit again, because a lot of things start popping up, right? There's more use cases like with Ethereum where people start doing computation and all these internet applications. That's where I was more interested in. And then, yeah, so that's how I got started.
Okay, very cool. Now moving on to the latest, like AAG Ventures, you decided to move into the crypto space after being aware from it, but like between that first memory and AAG Ventures, what was the time span?
The time span. So AAG Ventures we started was actually mid 2021. So yeah, I would say about 10 years or so. So between that, like I have been an advisor or investors in a lot of different Web3 startups as well. So even though I wasn't running my own business, I was in the scene. And even one of the company also that I advised also ended up getting acquired by Animoca. And that's how I ended up in getting involved with a lot of different layer 1 protocol, layer 2 protocol, and also these different applications, GameFi, NFT, and all those. So yeah, I've been in and out quite a bit actually.
Okay, and then what made you decide to say, okay, I've been involved, I've been invested, I've been participating, advising. What made you decide, okay, now's the time for me to start AAG Ventures, go it on my own,
Yeah,
speak?
I mean, it's actually kind of interesting. So I got really annoyed with Web3 actually because I just see a lot of lack in the foundational components, right? The usability is not there, the safety is not there. So I was thinking about starting a startup. I was actually going to move to Australia to do that. But then, interestingly, about a month after I was deciding that, then one of my friends, who's actually one of our co-founders now, came to me and my other friend, who's also another co-founder, Nelly, right? He was like, "Hey, looks like you have $22,000 in your account," which he was helping us manage it, right? Because he's doing a lot of OTC for us. And he was like, "Hey, can I borrow this?" I was like, "What is it for?" And he was like, "Oh, I want to start this thing called a guild," right? I was like, "What the hell is a guild?" And he was explaining to me how there's a lot of people who are struggling, and starting a guild will potentially give people opportunity to basically get back on their feet. And then I was like, okay, sure, let's try that. And then 3 weeks later, he was like, oh, by the way, we have 150 people. What? And then, so I was like, okay, so this seems interesting. And then I was like, okay, seems like you guys will need some help with math, right, to make this more efficient. So I was like, okay, let me come up with this magic spreadsheet and help you out. And then surely 4 weeks later, we're at 1,500 people. And then it became the problem again, back to what I was just mentioning. It's just a lack of infrastructure, lack of the foundational components that it just make it so that it's impossible to really scale. So then I start thinking, okay, maybe all this idea that I had, we can apply here as well. So we start building out the technology for it to managing the GameFi side, and at the same time also, again, building a new platform to manage the application stack, as well as the Web3 and I guess Metaverse components as well.
Okay, very interesting. And we're going to talk about some of that stuff in a bit. Before we come back to AAG Jack, I want to get more into the details. I just want to get yours for somebody who's been involved in the space. And if you're living in the States, you've probably seen CNBC, Bloomberg, local channels, FTX, 3AC. It's like
Yeah.
everything that shouldn't have happened this year happened. I was wondering, this first question is big, but like, how do we fix the public's perception of crypto going into next year? Is there a way to do it? Or is this just like lost and we just have to start from zero again?
I would not say it's starting from zero because back in the days, people did not even know what we're trying to do in Web3. So at least we don't have to go back there. But of course, all these media are painting all this doomsday scenario, right? Okay, it's just gonna go away and there's gonna be no trust. But I think there's multiple sides to this question. And first, I have to say that I think things won't be the same ever again, and it might be for good actually, right? To really build trust for the public again, there's multiple parts. I think from the CFI side, it will really come down to building trust by there's many different ways, right? First, regulation will come in. That will help make a regular consumer maybe feel a little better that, hey, by the way, these guys are regulated. They won't try to do all this shenanigan again. And then from the centralized exchange side, for example, like CC explained, there should be a way to prove the reserve. There should be a way to prove the liability. So there's been a lot of work that's undergo basically not development, but I mean at least the ideation with Vitalik come up with the new equation that used to do this, right, and all that. And CEC's team is building on it. So that part will actually help quite a bit. And then it will come down to, I think, education. People hopefully learn from this cycle to not repeat the mistakes, and decentralization, right? I think this is when people will start to realize that it actually matters. And because in the past few years, it's been more of investment, speculation, all that. And so it did not really matter. And people were just like, okay, if I put my money in a big exchange, then it's probably okay, right? And people just never really experienced that. In the last cycle, some people did, and then this cycle, more and more people did. I would say maybe triple or even quadruple, right? So now people are going to start realizing how they should probably figure out how to manage their own assets, for example. And then lastly, I think the most important part is utilities. So without being able to do something useful with it, people are going to be like, okay, this is going to be basically a tool for speculation. But in the end, Web3, Metaverse, crypto, NFT, all these things, either it has to help enable some new innovation, or it needs to make some existing things more efficient. Otherwise, people just gonna not trust it. And there's been a lot of interesting development in many different sectors, like in fashion, agriculture, supply chain, including COVID vaccine transportation, actually. And then there's more and more university now coming in with certification, all that. So I think as long as there can be useful things that people can do, all these new use cases, people will come in again, because I think Web3 is the future, and it will really help change a lot of things. And half the time people won't even recognize that there's actually crypto, blockchain, NFT behind it, because in the end, when usability is good, why does it matter, right? It's just technology in the end.
Exactly. And that's something on the podcast, and most of our listeners will know, something that I continuously talk about. I'm like, the current state of crypto, MetaMask, approving transactions, the underlying things, signing a message, seeing all those details sucks for normal people. My 76-year-old mother would not be able to do crypto stuff, which is why I have to do it for her. Jack, coming back to AAG, you told us why you started AAG. And someone who goes to the website right now, like before the show, of course, like any good person, I did my research. I had a look at your website. It's really cool. But for people who are trying to figure out, like, what are you doing with AAG? Why should they get involved? Why should they be following you guys on Twitter and social media?
Yeah, people get confused when they look at our website as well, because we're trying to solve a lot of things, right? We're not like a typical crypto startup where they are trying to solve one single problem. We look at things holistically. In short, I would say AAG is really trying to make things simpler and safer for both consumer and businesses to do something in Web3 and Metaverse. I think one of the reasons for people to really follow us is that we really do take things in completely different perspective, right? Like I said, we look at things holistically, and when we build something, even with our wallet, right? Our wallet is actually, if you really break it down, there's like 7 or 8 products in there, right? And wallet is just a part of it. So you start seeing how things are built, like how it was used to be built in Web 2, right? You don't just build one small module, you actually have to build so many different things around it. And that's why it takes us a little bit longer as well, right? From last year, we started building this, basically the platform for us to build application on top, and we call that Project Titan, because I don't know if you know about Titan. It's basically a god of Earth, right? So we see that as the foundational layer so that we can build application faster. We literally went all the way back there. And then interestingly, you also said your grandma is 76 years old, right? Our oldest user right now is also 76 years old. Just imagine that, having people who are 76 years old coming in and feel comfortable doing something, right? That's very important to us. Because when we started with GameFi, we have users from 18 to 76 years old, right? When she started from 75, now she's 76, she never even had a cell phone in her life, right? Now we start working with education, with Metaverse, now all of a sudden our user now dropped down to 6 years old, right?
Wow.
So now from 6 to 76. So literally, I can say that none of the wallet out there is safe enough for any of these people. And that's why we have to go back to the basic. We build our platform, now we build the basically wallet on top of the platform, and we build all these different layer of security on top.
Okay, very cool. And I really like the idea of that. So I looked at your wallet, the Meta One wallet. I really like the idea. Is this a wallet for regular people? Are you aiming towards crypto people as well? Are you competing with MetaMask or Phantom or one of the others? Hundreds of wallets out there. What is the market fit for this wallet? What are you trying to do with it?
It's interesting, right? Because when you start building a wallet, it's like, who are you to build a wallet? Especially like my background, I've been in our Web3, but not as long as some other people, right? And so the very first question people always ask is, why are you building a wallet? And none of the wallets out there, including multi-sig hardware wallet, none of them are actually safe, because they don't help prevent user mistakes, right? And that's really number one issues. So when we build a wallet, we break things down into multiple layers. So first layer, of course, is blockchain security, right? And that's basically every wallet. That's all they do is blockchain security. So what I mean by that is that they give you a way to manage your assets. So you use seed phases, private key, and all that. But I don't know about you, but I made mistakes many times. I lost some funds just because of the issue with seed phase and private keys, right? So the very first thing we do is we take a step back and say, okay, who are our users? So if our users are from 6 to 76 years. Some people, they don't even understand finance. And for kids, they don't even know how much money is worth, right? So how do we bring all these people in? So now our wallet, the way we build is really for Web2 users, Web2 businesses, but at the same time, it also is good enough for basically mainstream Web3 native users as well. First, they're going to be like, why would you do something like this where we eliminate seed phases and probably really literally destroy them? And we use multi-factor authentication instead, and we build it in such way. I don't know how much you know about security scheme, but we use Xiaomi secret sharing. And it's basically, if you implement it properly, it's literally unhackable.
Wow.
And you literally would have to do so many things, and you need to really break into it. And to me, it's very, very difficult to hack. And even for us as well, we're trying to make sure that people cannot really be scammed, right? So blockchain security is the foundational layer. Then we build a lot of things on top, right? Because there are, like, for example, like recently I lost like $2,000 on Solana because, like, for whatever reason, I didn't know that the wallet address is case sensitive, right? So I did even did a test transaction, and it just happened that I have a faulty keyboard. So when I copy and paste a wallet address, the last character is always deleted.
Oh no.
And the last character was a capital E, and I knew it got deleted because I know how my keyboard is faulty, right? So I was like, okay, what was the last character? So it's a capital E. So I type in an E, and surely I lost $2,000,
Oh,
right? That should never happen anymore. We had wallets since Bitcoin started, right? With Bitcoin wallet, like why do we still have all these issues? And then in the case where we have to deal with kids, right? So just imagine, like, giving kids, people say, why don't you just try to give kids $10? But what if you give them $10 and then the next day, because they bought an NFT, it blew up to $200,000, like with Bored Ape, for example. And then if you don't have a way to control it, then you might wake up the next day and then you have like a truck full of candy outside your house worth $200,000. They were like, what the hell? I thought you can use this for your college fund, right? So I would be completely depressed with what the hell. So then people will be like, so why don't you use multi-sig so that you basically can co-sign all these transactions, right? So you can control how much they spend. But that's also nonsense, because what if your kid, let's say in an ideal world, in the next few years where you can like freely use crypto to pay for everything, right? Including, let's say, taking a bus. So now your kid is at a bus stop trying to spend $2 to get on the bus, right? And you're busy in a meeting and you didn't see the message. So you basically didn't get to sign the message on time and your kid missed the bus. That should never happen, right? There has to be a more streamlined workflow for these different use cases. And that's how we think. So what are the real problems? Because it has to go beyond just a regular, just blockchain security. We've gone beyond that. MPC, the Xiaomi secret sharing, there's so many different ways to secure the underlying layer now. But how else would you help prevent different mistakes? How to enable all these use cases? It's not just the enterprise. It's not just big company having the technology. I think we need to bring all this technology to consumer as well. So that's how we tackle the problem with the wallet. And that's why we have so many different products that we compose all this and make it our wallet, essentially.
nice. Going back to you saying we do have 8 different products, like why, like, and I saw a few, why did you go for this sort of broad spectrum approach into tackling all these areas? Why not just focus on wallets or GameFi or other stuff? Like, why go so broad?
To focus on GameFi, right, is to actually enable access and experience. And the wallet is such fundamental component to that, right? When we run our guild and we have about a structure between 2 to 3,000, right, people, and they'll all, because the way we recruit people is very unique as well. We tend to prioritize some people who are in financial trouble, or their families in hospital, they need medication, all that. And that's why our users are all over. And like I said, right, there's age demographic, different background, majority of them are not tech savvy. So without thinking holistically, we're just gonna put them at risk. So many of our scholars got scammed, for example, right? Like even on our own, like Twitter page or Facebook page, right? We post something, there'll be a bunch of scammers like, hey, send me 0.1 BTC, I will send you 1 BTC. So many of our people were called scholars, right, in our guild side, they got scammed. So we want to make sure that they don't, because the moment you lose trust, like with all these FTX fiasco, and even as basic as getting scammed for $50, they will never come back again, because they're like, this is so primitive. And in Web3, this doesn't happen. So why is this happening only in Web3, right? So that's why we have to do all this. And that's why we have a product called Scam Detector. So we want to make sure that as near real time as possible, if if people go to our Facebook page and they find this kind of scam, we basically trying to prevent that. So by the time they're trying to send something from our wallet, we basically say, hey, by the way, do you find this on Facebook? You probably don't want to do this. We have to go to that level. And that's why there's all these different products that we put together that really help make it a more seamless experience from onboarding perspective, and also safer for people to use. Because when people feel safer, they will basically feel like, okay, now I'm going to explore on what I can do next. And that's why we have our own dApp store inside our wallet as well, so that people can really figure out, okay, I know that I can go buy crypto, I can go buy NFT, but what else can I do with it? I think that's how we can really bring Web3 Metaverse to mainstream. It's really to help people understand what the technology can do for them.
Nice. That's really impressive. Jack, going back to people listening to this podcast, watching the video on the YouTube channel, and they're like, okay, AAG Ventures sounds cool. Meta1 wallet sounds awesome. The GameFi wallet sounds great. I know you guys have your own AAG token. What blockchain is it on? Is that the way for people to get involved? Do you guys have a Telegram or Discord? Like, how should people get involved with AAG? Is there a specific place you'd like to send people to?
Yeah, sure. We, just like any other crypto project, right? We have all sorts of social media. So Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, Instagram, Discord, and all this. So yeah, if you go to our website, in the photo, there should be more information on how to learn more, to get involved, right? Because in the end, when you get into the community, then you get to hear more about what people think about us, what people are looking towards to in terms of the products. From the AAC token perspective, so we are right now on Ethereum and Harmony. And in the future, we'll probably bridge over to a more chain as well, because we essentially have to work right now. The last count I did yesterday, by the end of 2023, we'll probably be working on 23 different blockchains.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, because our wallet actually has some unique features where even if you connect to just one chain, you actually can utilize assets from other chains as well. So there's all those use cases that open up for Game Studio, where if you have your sword on Ethereum, your helmet on Solana, your boot on Cardano, you can use all of them at the same time. So we open without bridging as well. So we have all this capability. And yeah, so AAC token, you can buy them on Maxi, Gate, Uniswap, SushiSwap, and we'll have more in the future as well. Yeah, so that's one way to get involved. And when you have some skin in the game, it really makes you feel like you want to learn more as well. So I guess that's one way. And yeah, and try out our products. So we recently launched our Meta1 wallet. We first giving access to our beta partners, but if you're active in our community as well, we actually give you early access. And by the end of this year, we also will make it public so that anyone can just download and use.
Nice. That's even soon. Like, even if you join now, you don't get beta access. You're waiting like 5 weeks, which is really soon to.
And from the enterprise side as well, we start opening up our API now so that people can use our Meta1 API. We also have our cross-chain search engine. And that's actually another area, because the reason we build our own search engine is because none of the ones out there are actually good enough for us, because we want to really, I came from Web2, right? And search engines are typically very good. You can do a lot of aggregation, analysis, and all this. And all the ones out there right now, they are a little bit too primitive, right? I think a search engine will get there maybe in like 3 to 5 years. And that's why we have to build our own, unfortunately. And we've been talking to a lot of different enterprise companies as well, trying to help them understand what they can do with it, what they can do with not just our product, but what we can do with the technology in Web3, metaverses, and all that. And in the end, yeah, it will basically try to enable them through our products.
Okay, nice. Jack, you've mentioned like GameFi a bunch of times. Like, I would imagine you probably play a little bit of games like I do. I love my gaming. I do some blockchain gaming, which I enjoy as well. But at the same time, like I grew up playing games in like the late 80s and stuff. And I know a lot of gamers, they're not into blockchain gaming. Like, how do we get them there? Is it a possibility? Are we just waiting to show them that this is actually really cool? Like, how do you convince your non-blockchain friends to play or give blockchain gaming?
There's going to be a big shift, I think. And we're already seeing this, right? Because we started from the concept of play to earn. That's just not sustainable. And it's unfortunate that people need to be incentivized by money to come in sometimes, right? So I think at least there's a shift now. So the earning is now secondary. And now people start exploring more into like, what does Web3 really enable? So I think at the very core basic is that it allow you to own your own assets, right? So let's say you start playing one game and you get bored with it, you can go and say OpenSea and all that. I think it has to go beyond that, right? It's not just that. Now with NFT, you can go across different games as well, as long as it's supported, right? So you can either be in one ecosystem and you can go from game to game. Then again, you can also jump to a different ecosystem and play with other games using the same asset. Whether that will enable you, let's say, a better starting point, maybe let's say you have an Axie, you go to another game, you can start from level 5, right? Or it might actually become a weapon. It's however that ecosystem want to interpret the NFT. So I think what that does is will make things a little more interesting.
Nice. And I think I definitely agree with you. It's definitely will make things more interesting, and hopefully that will be enough to bring people across. Jack, I think I don't want to keep you for too long. I have 2 or 3 more questions. You've mentioned the metaverse as well. And I think most people are familiar with Facebook and the metaverse. And of course, I'll remind people Facebook is not the metaverse company. There are lots of different metaverses. They've not done well, and Wall Street has hammered them for that. They've cut a bunch of jobs. I mean, what do you think about the metaverse? Are we going to get there in 2023? What are we missing? What do we need to get to Web3's idea of the metaverse?
Sure. So right now, I think last I heard there's about 20,000 metaverses out there. That's actually a lot, right? And the metaverses that actually do well right now, like there's the one in Japan called Virtual Shibuya. They're the one that like 2 years ago during COVID, they hosted a Halloween party and 500,000 people show up at the same time.
Wow, that's a
Okay.
lot.
This one people don't know or talk about because they're not really Web3, they're still Web2 metaverse. And like in Japan, it's very interesting because every week there's a TV show that educate people what metaverse is because they know it's coming, right? And it's just come in what form. And even university now, there's in Japan, there's in the US Department of Defense, they start doing a lot of training in the metaverse because it's safer for their soldiers and personnel, right? So there's all these interesting use cases now, but they're hidden away because Web3 people are the loudest, right? So everyone talk about Sandbox, Decentraland, and I don't think those are the right type of metaverses because why are you gating people with lands and all that? The way so these are KDDI, the telco company in Japan, and now they start from digital clone first. So they start with Shibuya, then they went to Harajuku, and now they're in Roppongi. And with Roppongi, it's actually very interesting because the way they decorate their metaverse, they actually recruited a bunch of like junior high school kids to come and just basically make it colorful, make it looks nice and all that. So they strategically bring in people up front, right? So they have their vested interest. They come in, they help decorate certain area in the park and all those things. And they're like, hey, I did this. And they tell their friends and family to come and get involved in all that. And that's why they have so many users, right? It's just completely different perspective. Now, from the definition of metaverse, there's so many different ones, right? If you talk to Facebook, it's basically the new social media in a way, right? If you talk to Epic, more from the gaming perspective. So it's interesting because people think of metaverse, and they think about something like Ready Player One. But the thing is, Ready Player One, the setting is it's a dystopia world where people don't want to be in the real world anymore. That's not where we are, okay? Because if we are there, then we're really in trouble.
Right.
So the way we think it has to be differently. And the way I think of metaverse, there's 2 key parts. One part is basically there's now a different way for you to receive data, digest data, right? So now there's VR, there's AR, there's real world sensors, and then there's a screen. So there's 4 different ways. Now, velocity of how you receive the data is also different, right? So with AR now, let's say there's a piece of art behind you, okay? You should be able to just look up, and then information should be right. Painters, right? How much can I buy this for? Where did it come from? Which country? All these things, right? So the velocity will go and say, okay, where the hell did this piece of art came from, right? It's not that. So if you think of it from that perspective, from the AR side, let's say, I think 2023 is probably the year that we get there, right? Now, another side of metaverse is gamification. And like me and you, we discussed earlier, right, about how Asian people basically, when people incentivize you to do something, you do. You have, let's say, the credit card give you 10% off when you go to this restaurant. You go to that restaurant. You don't even know if it's going to be good or not. You go there because you get discount. So now with the concept of metaverse, and if you think about metaverse as real world, digital world, right, and with gamification on top. So let's say if you want to incentivize people, the governments I talk to, is that what if you have a region where it's impacted heavily by COVID, right? And their main revenue is only tourism. So how would you fix that? So one case I gave is, let's say if there's a government sponsored science fair, let's say in Taipei, right? Then the only way for the parents to register their kids to join is that you have to go to that region. Okay, you have to go and learn about the culture, the history, and maybe you can earn this NFT, which then give you access to this. Might sound far-fetched back in the past, but in Asian culture, that is not that strange to us.
Totally true.
So when you combine all this technology on how you can basically digest things and also generate data on connecting the world from physical and digital world, it now enable all these different use cases that we did not think before. If you watch the show like Black Mirror, right, and how they basically score you on your social status and credit, I think that is coming, right? You might even have different level in the real world. You can go level yourself to level 99, and you might basically be able to do something in digital world or maybe in the real world. So now it's really up to a company like AAG to provide infrastructure to enable these different businesses to really imagine what they can do. If they want to do A, then we have this product, right? So that's why when we build the metaverse side, we focus on multiple things. For one thing, of course, is basically streamline, right? Then we also provide business layer that in the end, every metaverse need to be able to make money to survive, right? But they might not think, they don't think far enough. They still think about building this building a way for people to build something on the top of that virtual land, but they don't really provide a real business use case or business layer that will help all these different business and consumer make money or basically be connected back to the real world, right? So that's what we're focusing on as well. So there's just a lot of different aspects. And when people ask me, will Metaverse come in 2023? I think we're already actually in Metaverse, if you really think about it, and to a certain extent. But if you just talk about the VR side alone, that will take a lot of time. I think, who knows, it could be 2024, 2025, but yeah, it's definitely coming.
And I totally agree with you. I can definitely see it coming. I would say, as you mentioned, living out in Asia, I think we can definitely see a few ways Metaverse, crypto, Web3 is coming here and maybe being adopted first because of a variety of reasons. Jack, you said so much, and you're like one of the most comprehensive, like technical guests who has such a knowledge of a broad range of topics. I really appreciate you taking time for the show today. We've talked about a lot, and I just want to give you a chance. Is there anything else you want to mention about AEG or any pearls of wisdom for our audience? You've already told everybody to follow AEG on social media. I'll have all the links in the podcast show notes, in the YouTube channel as well. Final thoughts about whatever you want to say, and then we can let you get on with your morning where you are.
Yeah, I would say focus on identify use cases, right? And whether it's Web3, Metaverse, you really have to think about what you do right now. You own a flower shop. What does Web3 or Metaverse mean to you? Or if you're a teacher, right? As a teacher now with Metaverse, you can potentially take your kids, your student to the moon and teach them about how gravity works, right? They become immersive and all that. So really think about what you're doing right now and how this technology can enable you. And at AAG, we open to discuss with anyone actually. And if you just a regular consumer, you can come to our Telegram channel and all that and come and discuss with us about what you think about Web3 and Metaverse and what we can do for you, right? Or if you're a business, then reach out to us. In the past 2 days, we've been discussing with banks, we've been discussing with large consulting firm on how they can really enable their customers, right, or their employees to do things more efficiently or do things differently. And we always love to talk.
Sounds great. Jack, thank you so much for your time. I'll put everything down in the show notes, as I mentioned before. And yeah, hopefully we get to catch up maybe in person, right? When next time you're in Taiwan.
Yeah, for sure.
And I hope we can get you on the show next year to see how everything is coming on, how the wallet launch was going, what people think about that. Because the wallet for me was the most exciting thing, because I hate MetaMask, I hate Phantom Wallet, I hate typical crypto wallet stock for me. So I'm really looking forward to your Meta One launch.
Yeah,
and hopefully,
I can give you access right after the call as well.
Oh, sweet.
Then you can try it out yourself.
I'd love to, because I'm a big fan of wanting crypto to be more accessible. That's why this podcast started and the YouTube started and a whole bunch of stuff to let regular Web2 people say, hey, actually you can do this, it's possible. And I love what you guys are doing with Meta One, being that sort of accessibility step, getting into crypto that way. Cool, Jack, thank you very much. And yeah, please, people, if you're listening to this and watching this, please check out AAG Ventures. And Jack will talk to you sometime in the future next year.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
You too.
All right. Bye.
All right, bye.